Welcome back, it's Brad. Today we're going to be replicating this viral TikTok and Shorts trend where we turn a podcaster into a baby podcaster. So something like this.
I'm drinking like Monster energy drinks sometimes, which are like piss magnets. They're delicious, but they make you want to pee.
Make you want to beat your wife too, dude. I've seen a lot of dudes drinking Monster.
These videos have generated millions of views and likes across a ton of channels, and it's an amazing way to build a brand, audience, and generate money. And what's even more, we're going to be automating the entire process using n8n, and I'm going to give you the entire project for free. Just follow the link in the description. So let's have a look at this n8n workflow in action. Once we've uploaded a video to Google Drive, this is going to trigger this automatic workflow. We're going to get the video, download it from Google Drive so that we have the binary format, and then we're going to make a post request to API Hub, and this is going to convert the video to audio. Then we have a wait 2 minutes specified here because the video to audio process, which is going off to API Hub API, is an async process, and we have to await those. So if we forward through this, what's going to happen next is we're going to go into the Hedra model where we're going to create an audio asset. So in order to upload to Hedra and use it to create images and videos, we need to first create an asset, and then from that asset we need to insert our audio within the asset created. So as you can see down here, we merged the asset and binary audio, split the binary metadata for sanitization purposes, and then upload the audio to the Hedra asset. Once that's been processed, we're going to get the title base from the video. Then we're going to get the image ID from Google Drive. We're going to download that image so we have the binary format, and then we're going to host this online. Now the reason we host this online using freeimage.host API is because we are going to be using the Midjourney model for this. So for that we need an image URL instead of binary format. So when we use image to describe within Midjourney, we are going to use the image URL as opposed to say the binary which we use in Hedra. We wait 2 minutes here because it's an async process. Then we run the image describe using Midjourney model, wait another 4 minutes for that to process successfully. Then we'll get the description from Midjourney. We'll then use ChatGPT to combine the description with a system and user prompt that we've allocated in this node. Then we sanitize the data, remove all icons, remove all new lines, and then we'll process it via Midjourney again, doing text to image generation. Once this image is generated, we are then going to download it. And just like we did with the audio file, we are going to create an image asset within Hedra, merge the asset with the binary image, split the binary metadata, upload the image to the Hedra asset we just created, and then combine both the audio and the image assets so that we can use these in order to render the video within Hedra. Once this is complete, we're going to get the baby pod video from Hedra that we just created because it's going to create an asset within the video endpoint or the generated video endpoint. We're then going to download it and pass it into Google Drive. Now the reason for this is because we need to change the MIME type, which we'll go into more detail in a bit. Once we've downloaded the Hedra video to Google Drive, we're going to upload it to YouTube, and then if it's successfully published, we're then going to send a success confirmation email to our email address specifying the name of the video. So if we navigate to YouTube, go to the short section, and as you can see, this short has been produced recently. So let's play this.
But you do need vitamin D, and you should also take vitamin D with vitamin K2.
Pretty crazy, right? So that's what we're going to be creating from scratch today. So before we get started, let's talk about the template that you'll have access to with the link in the description. We're going to have a number of different folders within our animated pod file. And the only two that we really care about for the initialization of this automation pipeline is the animated pod video section and the animated pod image section. So within this, we're going to have a video, some type of short video.
But you do need vitamin D, and you should also take vitamin D with vitamin K2.
Which just shows a short clip of some type of podcast. So we're going to be using the Joe Rogan pod for this one. And in regards to an image, we're going to take a screenshot from either the video or just add a random image of, say, Joe Rogan in this instance into here so that we can use this in our Midjourney model to describe what's going on in the image. And to note, you should add this image in here first before adding in the videos, because this file creation within this folder is going to trigger the automation pipeline. So let's look at the trigger. So we're going to use a Google Drive in order to automate this process. So this is going to be the initial scheduler. So if we get a Google Drive node, and we're going to have a trigger on changes to a specific file. Now you'll have to add authentication with Google Drive, so you'll have to go into the Google Cloud Console. So the first step in Google Cloud Console is to create a project. So I have n8n test already set up, so I'm going to use that. Navigate to audience, scroll down, and then just add your email in here that you're going to be using in order to connect to your n8n account. Then we go back into clients. We can create a client here, specify an application type, web application, name it whatever you want, and add the URI in here. So if we go back to the workflow, in here, if I was to create a new one, I'd create a new credential. I'd be given this callback, right? So this is the redirect URL. So this is just saying, once we connect to our Google Cloud account, it's going to redirect us back to n8n with permissions granted. So if you copy this, go back into Google Cloud Console, add the URI in here, paste it in, create this. You get the client ID and the client secret. With this information, you can then paste it into here, click save, and then you'll have access to your Google Drive account. So I'm just going to close from this because I already have mine hooked up. So with the template down below in the description, what you're going to get, you'll have a number of files and folders that you have access to. And we're going to say when one of these specific folders changes, so we actually upload a video to one of the folders, it's going to trigger this automation pipeline. So let's just say it's every day. Right, so how often do we poll this to check if there has been an update to a file or folder? Specific folder, let's grab from the list, and it's going to be animated pod videos. And we'll just say when a file has been created. Now we can test this event. As you can see, we have the Joe Rogan pod pulling in successfully. Now we can quickly update the name. So if we hit shift space, Google Drive, upload baby pod. So as soon as we upload a file to that folder within Google Drive, our workflow automation is going to be triggered. Next, we want to actually get that video and download the file. So Google Drive, download file, hit enter. We'll use the same credentials as before because we're accessing Google Drive again. Let's update the name to get video to. And then we just want to select the file by ID. And we can either type this in or drag and drop from the previous node. Switch to expression, curly braces, $sign to access the system code, and then JSON dot, and it's going to be ID here. And this is going to grab us the ID of the Google Drive video. Let's go ahead and run this step. Okay, so now we have the binary data of the Joe Rogan pod video. Now what we want to do with this video is convert it to audio. So for this, we are going to be using an API. So this is going to be a HTTP request. Now the API we're going to be using to convert the video to audio is going to be API Hub. And if you scroll up, there's going to be information on setting up the API Hub API key, as well as converting it to what endpoints we need and specifying the documentation. So that's all in the link in the description. So let's go into this, rename it to video to audio 1. It's going to be a post request because we're passing in our video binary data. It's going to be to extract video audio. And here we are specifying the output. So this test sample is what the resultant file is going to be. When we send the headers, so if we go into API Hub, just to note, you only get 5 API calls as part of the free tier within this API. So make sure you use them sparingly. So if we go over to API keys over here, up here you can click API key in order to generate a new one, but I'm just going to use the n8n test one. So if we come back into the code, so the name for the header is going to be API token, and then we can just pass in our API key. We're going to be sending the binary data, so we need to send body. Let's update this to form data, select n8n binary file. This is going to be video, and the input is going to be data because we're passing in this data binary file. We need to add multiple parameters here. So form data, duration is 5 seconds. So we are only creating a 5-second clip here. We need another one. Output format is MP3 because we want the audio, and then that looks good. So if we test this step, we get the binary file back. And if you look into API Hub, they're going to the dashboard. As you can see, I've carried out 2 of the 5 API calls that I have today. And to note, within n8n, you cannot pin binary data. If you do, it's going to convert it into JSON and it's going to lead to errors downstream. And because this is an async function, we are going to specify a wait node, rename this to wait 2 mins, update this to 2 minutes, close that. So we can run this. Whilst that's processing, we can carry on with this. So next up, we want to create the image. So let's create a new node, edit fields. So we want a new set here. And we want to move this down here and add a connection from the Google Drive upload. So we want 2 processes to come from the Google Drive upload. We want to generate the audio, and we also want to generate the image, which we're then going to pass into Hedra in order to create this baby podcast video. So let's rename this to get title base from video. Now this is really important. We're in our template documentation. Within animated pod, we have the animated pod videos, which was the Joe Rogan video, and we also have animated pod image. And as you can see, the names are the exact same. So Joe/Rogan/pod, Joe/Rogan/pod.mov. And this is really important because this is what we're going to be splitting on in order to get the image from this drive. So it's going to be a manual mapping. I'm going to add a field. So let's search for original file name. So we're going to drag this over. And then we're just going to use some basic JavaScript code. So we need to set this to an expression, add 2 curly braces, JSON.originalFileName, and then we're going to split this. We're going to split by the period. So essentially what split is doing is it's splitting this string into an array that comprises 2 elements. The first element is this value, and the second element is this value. And because it's 0 indexed, we start off with 0. So essentially this is going to be the 0th value, and this is going to be the first value. So we get Joe Rogan pod. So when we test this step, that's what we get as the result. Now we need to search for that. So let's get a Google Drive node again, and we want to search for this one. Let's hook it up. Let's rename this to get image ID. We can use the same authentication because we're using the same drive. It's going to be file folder, it's going to be search. We need to search for the original file name. And at the end of this, we just need to specify it's a .png because that's what we're looking for. So we need to make sure that the image that we always pass in to the drive, the template, is going to be a PNG file, not a JPEG. We just want one. If we hit test step, we get the ID. So now we're going to download the image. So Google Drive, download. Let's rename this to something more useful. So download image. So we're going to download by ID, and that's the ID we just got from the previous node. Let's just pass the ID in here, test that step. So the resource you're requesting could not be found. Okay, so that's been deactivated. Don't know why that is. So if we hit D on the keyboard, rerun it, run this again. And we've downloaded the image. So the next step is to upload this, because ultimately we want to use Midjourney to describe this image, and then from that description, create the baby pod image, which we'll then use to create the video. But in order to use Midjourney within PyAPI.ai, we need to have an image URL. So let's do a HTTP request. This is where we're going to be creating the image URL, and we can use free image host here. So let's rename this to free image host, upload image. And this is all specified in the documentation above this design. So it's going to be a post request because we're posting this binary file to free image. The endpoint is going to be API/1/upload. We're going to be sending the body. Content type is going to be form data key, and we're going to pass in our API key. Now how we get this, scroll up to the top of the page, free image, let's select this. This is going to navigate to the API section. So we can just copy this value and paste it into our HTTP request. We need to add a couple more parameters. So it's going to be form data. We're going to specify action as upload. We need n8n binary file because that's what we have over here. Let's say the source is data. And remember, with binary files, we don't actually use expressions here. We can just grab data from here and pass it in as a fixed name. Let's test this step. Now this is an async process, so we'll also have to add a wait node after this. So let's go ahead and do that. So wait, let's specify 2 minutes. Let's rename this to wait 2 mins. Once that's done, we're going to pass this into Midjourney. So HTTP request Midjourney image describe. And what this is going to do is it's just going to describe exactly what's in the image to a fine detail. So if we hit post request, we can get this information from above. So this is going to be using PyAPI. So we can navigate into PyAPI here. We can go into workspace. We have to provide credit, so you have to set up billing, which is all documented in the template. If we navigate to image models, we have Midjourney. As you can see, I've processed a number of these. If you look into run API, this is where you'll find all the documentation. So we're going to be using describe here. So we need the X API key. So this is going to be the key. So in regards to the API key, we can just go into playground here and we'll have the API key here. So we can just copy this, go back in to our workflow. So because we're using PyAPI, this is almost like a proxy that allows us to use multiple models without locking credit into one specific model. So we have the capability of using multiple models. We need to set the headers here. So we want to have accept application JSON, X API key. Doesn't really matter about capitalization here. We can paste in the value, send a body. So we're going to be using JSON here, and we want to set an expression. So if we open this up in the documentation of the describe, on the right here, we'll have an example which we can use within this post body. So if we paste it in, we have Midjourney, we've set the task type to describe. We're going to set a process mode of fast. And for the image URL, this is going to be the image URL that we've recently stored within free image host. So if we execute previous node, then the image URL is going to be exposed to us. So as you can see, this is our image. So let's just wait for this wait to process. Whilst we're doing that, we can add a new wait here. So this is going to be wait. And we're going to set this to say 4 minutes for the describe. You can mess around and work the optimal time, and then we can update the name as well. So wait 4 minutes. Now, because this is in development, what I'm going to do is set this to seconds, and I'm going to manually look at PyAPI responses to know when this description has been made and completed, so that we don't have to wait 4 minutes for this to process. So let's actually run this manually. So let's do the image describe using Midjourney's model. So this is an async process, right? So this will be pending. As you can see, status right here is pending. If we look into the JSON, status is pending. So we can go into PyAPI. If we go into task history, we can see that one is processing right now. So we're going to wait for this to complete. This will give us a detailed description of the image, and then we can use that plus ChatGPT to create a prompt that is then going to be used to create our baby podcaster image. Okay, that succeeded. Let's just run this wait. Now that the image description has been created, we have to grab that image. So another HTTP request to Midjourney. Let's rename this Midjourney get description. So it's going to be a GET request. In regards to the URL, it's going to be the exact same as before, but we're going to pass in the task ID as a parameter. We set headers, it's going to be accept application JSON, basically saying we do accept JSON data. Add parameter X API key, paste in the value we got from PyAPI. We aren't sending a body because it's a GET request. Let's test this. Bad request, check your parameters. Okay, so we've added a space here. So let's remove that space and test it again. Okay, great. So now we have the description. And as you can see, this description would fail being passed into multiple models because we have icons, we have new lines, and we have quotes within quotes, which isn't valid JSON. So we need to sanitize this data. But before we do that, let's actually combine this description with a ChatGPT system prompt and user prompt, and then we can look at sanitizing that. So let's create OpenAI message model. So what we're going to be doing here is combine description with prompt. So for this, you are going to have to set up configuration with OpenAI, which is documented at the top of the page. Once you've completed that, come back to this node. The message model, we're going to use GPT-4 to keep it cheap. In terms of the role for this first one, it's going to be a system, so we can paste in our system prompt. We also need to add a user prompt, so we can also paste in this user prompt. So the system prompt is basically explaining how the system should act, and then the user prompt is what we want ChatGPT to do. So as you can see here, we want to generate a photorealistic baby version of described subjects from the previous description, and we've added this in dynamically here. Simplify output, let's run test on this. Okay, and we've got the content, generate a hyper-realistic image of a baby version of a bald man wearing headphones and a black and white baseball style shirt. Like we said before, we want to sanitize this data because even though we haven't got new lines specified in here or any icons, we do have quotes within this content, right, which isn't valid JSON. So in order to sanitize this, we are going to be using a code node. So run once for all items, we're going to be using JavaScript, and we're going to be using regex. So type in const raw is equal to, we're going to pass in this content. So this is data we want to sanitize and clean up. Let's clean it up and return it. So this is what we're going to be doing. Remove emojis, remove the R, remove the new lines, remove double quotes. This is a very important one. Remove number lists and collapse multiple spaces. And we're going to trim. So we're going to remove surrounding spaces basically. And we're going to return this with the key cleaned description. So as you can see, there are no double quotes within this anymore. Now it's another HTTP request. We use Midjourney's model to create the image, text to image. Same URL as before. We want to set the headers here, accept, application JSON, add the API key, send the body. So JSON, we're going to be using JSON here. Convert this to expression, open this up, paste in this value. So here we're using the Midjourney model again. So the task type is set to imagine, and we're passing in the prompt that we generated from the code node. Let's run this. The resource could not be found. Interesting. So here's the issue. It's a post request, not a get request. So let's run this again. Okay, great. So this is pending now, right? Because it's an async function. So let's wait this. We're going to wait manually as always, but in reality, you'd have a wait node here. So let's say this is 5 minutes. We'll just leave it as 5 seconds for now, and we'll keep an eye on our task history. So that's just processed. We can see the images in here. So Midjourney always creates 4 images that you can use. So these images aren't the best. Maybe we need to reassess the prompts and upgrade the model being used. Instead of using ChatGPT-4, use 4.0. But as you can see, these aren't like hyper realistic. So let's copy this node. We're going to be getting the image here. So set this to get, execute the previous node, which is wait in 5 seconds. And in order to get, we are just going to be using task as well. We have to add parameter, which is going to be the task ID. And remember to remove this space here. Set the headers, application JSON, yes, XAPI key, correct. We can remove the body from this. Let's test this. Cool, now we have access to the images. Let's wait 15 seconds for that to process, but keep it as 5 seconds for now for the testing purposes. Now we're going to be passing this into Hedra, and what we need to do, we actually need to download this into its binary format because Hedra specifically requests binary format as opposed to an image URL. So let's download this. So HTTP. So download Midjourney image, get, so let's execute previous node. So if we move over to JSON, if we scroll down a bit, we can see the temporary URLs which we've generated. We wanted this one, the second value. As you can see, we have 1 in here because this is the first index in this array. Okay, let's set some options. The response, what do we want the response format to be? Well, let's say file, and let's call it data. Let's give this a run. Okay, now we have the binary data. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use Hedra, so this platform, and we're going to be using the API for this. So if you follow the link at the top of the workflow, the API profile, this is where you can get your API key. And then in terms of the documentation, this is really important. We're going to be using these docs to craft our request. So as specified in the Hedra documentation, what we want to do is create an image asset that we can then store our image inside. So let's rename this create image asset. This is going to be a post request at this specific endpoint assets. We need to set the headers, so the X API key using the API key that we grabbed from before, content type application JSON. We want to send the body for this one. So using JSON. So if we look in the documentation for creating an asset, as you can see, this is what we need to pass in as the payload. So the type can either be image, audio, video, or voice. For this one, it's going to be an image, and we need to specify a name. So let's open this up, paste this in. So baby podcaster image, type image. If we press test step, this is going to create that asset. And we get an ID return from this. Now we need that asset as well as the image in order to upload that image to Hedra. So we're going to use a merge node here, merging the asset and binary image. We're going to be appending two values together. Let's close that down. Let's move this up, and then let's link this to the second input. Let's run this. Now, as you can see, we get the binary data as well as JSON. So we get the information from Hedra as well as the binary data for the image that we created in Midjourney. Let's create a code node and split this out. So we're going to split the binary and metadata. Going to be using JavaScript for this, and we can paste this in here. So let's open this up to read through this. So we have access to items by default within the code node. So we get the binary item, which is going to be looking for binary data and checking if there is a key where the binary value's length is greater than 0. So basically saying if the binary object is available. Metadata item, we're also finding the metadata. So we're looking for items containing JSON, JSON ID, and JSON type. And then we're just going to return all of these. And this is how we successfully split out the metadata and the binary data. Let's test this step. Great, that's worked. So we have the metadata, binary data, pulling through as expected. Now we want to upload that image to Hedra. So HTTP, upload image. This is going to be a post request. For the endpoints, it's going to be /assets/ the ID, the asset ID that we created. Make sure to remove this space. It's automatically created, and it's going to be /upload. Now I should really copy the previous node so that I don't have to always add this in. So we need to add in the API key, also content type. It's good for practice though. And in terms of content type, this is going to be multi-part form data. We're going to be sending a body. It's going to be form data. It's going to be n8n binary file. The name is file. And the input data field name, well, if we look in binary, it's called data. So let's add that in. Let's give this a run. So that's uploaded. Now, before we move on to the next step here, we want to go back up to where we generated the audio to begin with. And we want to do a very similar process. So let's actually copy these four nodes, let's paste them, drag them up here, hook this up. We're going to update this to create audio asset. And we just want to update the JSON body here. So let's open this up. It's going to be baby podcaster, and we'll update this to audio. Remember, one of the types from the documentation earlier was audio, so let's use that. So that's what we're uploading here, or we're creating an asset for anyways. Merge asset and binary audio. Yes, we are going to be appending two inputs. So let's hook those up. It's going to be this one as well. Let's actually move this up so we're not crossing over. Split binary and metadata, paste this in. Then we need to upload the audio. So upload audio. So this is going to be a post request, JSON ID upload. That's all correct. API key, yes. Content type, multi-part form data, yes. Cool, that looks good. So we want to run this. We haven't kept this data, so it looks like I'm going to hit the Appy Hub API again. So let's give this a run. And unfortunately, we're going to have to run the entire application again. So I'll fast forward this step. Okay, so that's finally processed. Let's crack on. Okay, so we're going to need another merge node. And we're going to merge these assets. So let's rename this to merge assets. Perfect. Let's bring this down and hook them up. Yep. So we're appending two values. We want to split image and asset IDs because what we get from returns from this Hedra is the asset ID, which is what we're going to be using in order to create this render of this baby podcast. So let's use the code node in order to split these out and sanitize the data. Let's rename this to split image and audio asset IDs, rename. And for this, what we're going to do is paste this in. Now let's open this up and walk through it. So we declare image asset ID and audio asset ID initially set to null. Then we're going to iterate through each item. We're going to destructure the type and the ID from item JSON. And then we're going to check if the type is equal to image. If it is, then we're going to update this value from null to the specific ID that we've destructured from here. Else, if type is equal to audio, then what we're going to do is update the audio asset ID from null to the ID. And then we're just going to return those values. So let's see what we get. So we split out the image and audio asset IDs. Now here's what we've all been waiting for. We want to actually render this video. So it's going to be a request to Hedra. So let's rename that. It's going to be a post request. As always, the endpoint is going to be different here. So it's going to be generations. We need to create the authentication headers. So the same as before. content type, application JSON. We're going to send the body, and within this documentation, we have generate asset. This is the payload that we want to send, or something very similar, where we can set the start keyframe ID to the image asset ID, and then the audio ID to the audio asset ID that we've created. Let's go back into this. We're going to be using JSON. Let's set this to expression, open this up and paste in this. So like we said before, we're going to paste in the start keyframe as the asset ID, the audio ID as the audio asset ID. We're going to pass in a simple text prompt, which we could improve. So this would be an area for improvement, but for now, this is good enough. We're going to close this down and run this. So this has created us an asset ID. So for the actual design, we would have a wait node here. So wait, and let's say it's like 8 minutes, but let's leave it as seconds because this is in the test environment. So we'll just wait for Hedra to render this video. Once that's done, we can actually get the video from Hedra. So let's actually copy this, put this up here, get baby pod video. So this is going to be a GET request. So the endpoint here is going to be assets, and we're going to pass in a query param specifying type to equal video because we want to get the video. We want to get it by a specific ID. So we set and IDs equal, and then this is going to be an expression. So it's going to be $JSON, and it's going to be the asset ID that we got from the previous node. So the node that generated or rendered the video, that needs to be ID, not it. And we'll see this working in action when the video has actually been rendered. So we can remove this. We can remove the body. So that looks good. Specify another wait node just in case. So this will be around 15 seconds. Wait 15 secs. So this is the second one, 15 secs. So let's have a look in Hedra, see if it's been generated. Let's go into our library. That was the one.
But you do need vitamin D, and you should also take vitamin D with vitamin K2.
So again, like I said, not the best video. We'll have to update the prompts in order to make this more photorealistic, but we're going to work with that anyways. So now that that's been generated, we can run this. Then we can get the video. So within this output of Hedra, get baby pod video, what we're really looking for is the asset URL. So this is where the video is stored online, and we can use this URL to download this content. So let's copy this, let's move this over. So this is going to be where we download the video. So rename that. It's going to be get. We're going to be passing in the URL. So this is what we want to be downloading. We don't want to be setting headers here. We want an option for the response. We're going to set file to data. Let's test this step. So here we've downloaded the video. Here's the catch. This is set to binary octet stream. We need to convert this MIME type into MP4 as opposed to this, otherwise our YouTube node is not going to upload this video content. And the only successful way I found of doing this is if we upload this to our Google Drive and then download it again, it will convert it to MP4. So let's have a look at how that would play out. So if we set Google Drive, upload file, let's update the name, file upload data. So we're just going to name the file pod dash, pass in some dynamic content, so it's going to be JSON.id. This could be an area for improvement where you can utilize your own name generation, but I'm just going to leave this as is for now. We're going to select this from a list. So it's going to be added to animated pod Hedra video. So let's go ahead and run that. We can then look within our Google Drive. So Hedra video, let's have a look for it. Let's refresh this. So as you can see, it's right here. We've uploaded the file successfully. So let's download it and convert it to MP4. Google Drive, download, and it's just going to be JSON ID. So drag that in. This is what we're going to be downloading. Let's test this step, and we should see the MIME type turn to MP4. As you can see, video/MP4. Now this is formatted to be uploaded via the YouTube node. Let's attach that YouTube node, upload. As usual with credentials, you're going to have to connect a YouTube account. So update the YouTube API within Google Cloud Console. So you're going to have to enable that. So it's going to be YouTube Data API. You enable it here. Right, API is enabled, and then you go into manage and you provide yourself with access as we've done before. So in regards to the title, we're keeping it very similar as before, where we're going to use the ID. So it's going to be pod-ID, select region. So I'm going to select United Kingdom. Let's call this entertainment. Input binary field is data, right? So if you look into binary, this is data, add option, description, and just give it a static description. So funny, baby, podcast. Let's add another option. Make sure that this is unlisted for testing purposes. So privacy status, unlisted. Let's test that step. And we get an upload ID back. Now the next step is pretty straightforward. So we're going to have an if statement, or an if node rather. And if this is successfully published, so if the upload ID is not equal to, so string, not empty, string is not equal to, I'm going to specify undefined. So if nothing is returned from this, if an upload ID isn't returned from this, it'll be set as undefined, which means that this hasn't processed correctly, but we're setting this is not equal to undefined. So as long as there's a value here, we know that this is processed successfully. So this will go to the true endpoint from this if node, right? So the true branch. So this generates a true and a false branch. And then based on this, we can create a conditional render. So if it's true, we can send a success email. So Gmail, send a message, connect your Gmail account, message send. So I'm going to send this to my account. So DSA to gmail.com, successfully posted baby pod by n8n. It's going to be text, add an expression, open this up, and paste in this content. So auto-generated message successfully posted to YouTube. We dynamically add the title of the short, best bot. So that's that done. Let's rename this to Gmail success. We'll also need to do this for the false. So let's copy this, go this down here, attach this branch, Gmail fail. So it's going to be the same, but we're going to say failed to post baby pod video via n8n. Open this expression up, and then just update this to failed to post to YouTube, and add the name that we failed to post. Okay. And we can test this step now. So if we test this, provided authorization grant, so authorization code resource. Okay, so I'm using the wrong OAuth. So let's update this to this one. Let's actually test this. Account connected. Let's reconnect. Continue. Continue. Great. Let's retry this. And there it's been sent. If we open up Gmail, as you can see, we have this new email. Great. So that's working. Let's check the video. If we navigate into the YouTube channel, as you can see, the video has been generated here. If we go ahead and play this.
But you do need vitamin D, and you should also take vitamin D with vitamin K2.
So this is very close to what we're expecting, but the difference is largely due to the prompts that we've passed into the models and not using the best versions of the model. So we need to adjust the prompt slightly within Midjourney and Hedra post requests to align more closely with the original video to get a video more like this one.
But you do need vitamin D, and you should also take vitamin D with vitamin K2.
So just to recap, as soon as we add a video to the Google Drive, this triggers our workflow. We then create the audio from the video using AppyHub API and upload that audio to the asset via Hedra API. We also generate the baby image using free image host to create an image URL. We then pass it into Midjourney to describe that image. Then we use ChatGPT plus the description from Midjourney in order to create our own personalized prompt that we then pass into Midjourney for text to image. Then once again, we create the Hedra asset. So this is going to be the image asset. Upload this image to Hedra and then combine the two, so the audio and the image within Hedra to create this video. But that's the flow. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.